mx of s is finite for all s minus epsilon epsilon. So, this epsilon is greater than 0. Okay. Epsilon is any positive number, it can be very small also, okay, as small as you like, it can't be 0, it has to be strictly positive. Suppose you tell me that mx of x is finite in that little interval around the origin, then mx of s uniquely determines the CDF of x. If x and y are two random variables such that mx of s equals my of s for all s in some tiny interval minus epsilon to epsilon, again epsilon is positive. Then x and y have the same CDF. So, this is like a uniqueness of moment generating function. Okay. So, it is not enough to specify it at a point or a few points, but if you specify the moment generating function in a tiny interval, right, no matter how tiny it is, if you specify it in an interval, the CDF is uniquely specified. Furthermore, if you have two random variables, let us say you know nothing else about them, but you do know that they have the same moment generating function, not necessarily everywhere, okay, they have the same moment generating function in some very tiny interval around the origin. Okay. See, all moment generating functions agree at the origin, right, because mx of 0 is equal to 1, but I am saying that mx of s and my of s do not just agree at the origin, which they have to, they agree in a tiny interval around the origin. Okay. Then it is necessarily the case that the moment generating functions have to agree in their entire regions of convergence, and the random variables have the same CDFs. Okay. So, this kind of a result is possible because these so called analytic functions, this moment generating functions, whenever they exist in a neighborhood, they are analytic functions of s, of the complex variable s actually, and these analytic functions have some very tight properties. Okay. So, you cannot have two analytic functions agreeing on an interval and then differing elsewhere, okay, because you cannot make analytic functions by stitching together, right, because they have some very tight structure. Okay. You cannot stitch together functions and make them analytic, it never works that way. Okay. So, that is why this theorem holds. Okay. This proof is beyond the scope, as I said, because it requires machinery from complex analysis. Which one?
Around 0.
There is no further conditions, right, I mean I have not said anything else here, right. If they agree in an interval, they agree everywhere. Actually, that has nothing specific to do with moment generating functions, it is true for all analytic functions. It just so happens that the moment generating functions, whenever they exist in an interval, they are analytic. Okay.
Around the origin can be anywhere.
See, the thing is, so if you take that, let us say s is equal to 0, mx is always, all moment generating functions have the value 1. Okay. So, what I require is that the function function agree on some interval. Okay, that interval can be anything, right, if it agrees on minus epsilon 1 to epsilon 2, it necessarily agrees on some minus epsilon to epsilon, right. So, I can So, I can take there is no loss of generality in taking a interval like that. Okay. Generally, if an analytic function agrees on any interval whatsoever, it will, that is enough.
Taking 0 because absolute is always.
It is always defined, right. 0 it is always defined, but it is not clear that it will be defined in an interval around 0 as in this case, right. But if it is defined, it is uniquely specified, no matter how tiny this epsilon is. Yeah, you can have minus epsilon 1, epsilon 2 if you like. There is nothing very sacred about keeping the same epsilons, right. So, is that clear? So to go back to this, if you give me a function like that and specify an interval in which it holds, then I am unique, I am sure that this is an exponential and that is a Gaussian without even specifying it for, let us say, the whole of real line. If you tell me that the MGF is e power s square over 2 in a tiny interval around the origin, then it has to be a Gaussian, the random variable, right. But here you cannot specify it for an interval, right, it is too bad, it is only defined for one point. In that case, it is not unique. Okay. So, okay, so that means, so at some level I must be able to, if you are giving this kind of some functional form to me in an interval, I must be able to invert the moment generating function and get back my CDF or PDF or as the case may be, right. There are actually explicit formulae in terms of the moment generating function to get back your, so to get back your in this case density, let us say, right. These formulae are basically similar to the inverse Laplace transforms, okay. But again we will not go into it because it requires, so what is an inverse Laplace transform like? It is a contour integral, right, it is an integral of a complex function over a certain contour, right. So because that is a little bit beyond our scope, we will not actually perform contour integration to invert any transforms. After all, if I tell you that the MGF is 1 over 1 minus s, you can just do some pattern matching and figure out what the random variable is, right. So, what the approach we will take is somewhat more what I might call practical rather than very mathematical, just that if you just pattern match, if you see a transform like that, you know it is Gaussian, right. So, we will just figure out some transforms for some popular random variables, put that in your, keep that in your mind or put that in your formula sheet for your exams, and you just do pattern matching, okay. We will not worry about contour integrals. Yeah, so most of you must be experts on Laplace transforms, right. Some of you will just know, will probably have like memorized a bunch of tables of transforms and such. So, in that case you can pattern match, if you have not that type, you put it in your formula sheet, no problem, right. So, properties. Properties of MGF. Mx of 0 is equal to 1, right, that is the most trivial property, that is by definition. Second property, moment generating property. Which is why the function is called the moment generating function in the first place, right. So, this I will put as a theorem. Suppose mx of s is finite for S in minus epsilon 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 is positive. Then the derivative with respect to S evaluated at S is equal to 0 is equal to expectation of x, and generally the mth derivative ds m at S is equal to 0 is equal to expectation of x power m. Okay. So, what this is saying is that if you take the derivative of the moment generating function with respect to S and set S is equal to 0, you get the expectation, which is the first moment, and generally the nth moment, the mth moment is obtained by evaluating the mth order derivative and taking S is equal to 0. Okay. So, this is again, so if you want to prove this theorem, so there is a, I mean there is, I will just at a very hand wavy level, this is what is happening, right. You are taking d ds of expectation of e power s x, right. So, if you tolerate me taking the derivative inside, okay. So, if you do expectation of d ds e power s x, then this will be expectation of s times e power s x, correct. I am differentiating with respect to s, right. So, x times e power s x, correct. So, this is equal, so and then I set s is equal to 0, then I get expectation of x, right. So, yeah, I mean I guess if you are an undergraduate student, this is the proof for you. If you are a graduate student, you will have to question this step, right. I am essentially taking the derivative inside what is this expectation, after all it is integral, right. It is an integral x d e power s x dp, right. So, this requires a somewhat serious proof, okay, not a difficult proof, but this will be in your homework. Okay, it is I will put this in your next tutorial. This requires a proof, I believe it is you have to invoke dominated convergence theorem somewhere in order to yeah, it requires an invocation of the dominated convergence theorem, that is your hint, okay. And similarly for the mth derivative, again if you are willing to buy this step, you can differentiate this m times and you will get x to the mth here, right. So, you will get the mth moment, okay. So, the only real mathematical thing is in taking in the, you are essentially differentiating inside the integral, that requires the justification, okay. It is not always true, okay, it requires justification. After all, the derivative is, so let me give you one more conceptual hint. So, the derivative is some kind of a limit, correct, limit h tending to 0 of something, right. So, you have expectation is an integral and what is outside is a derivative which is like a limit. So, you have limit of integral, and if you have to integrate interchange it, you have to have integral of limit, right. So, you must invoke either MCT or DCT, you know only two ways to do it. In this case it turns out that DCT will do the job, okay. So, I will not say anything more about the proof, because you will supply this step and then you are fine, okay. So, that is property number 2, okay. Property number 3 if y equal to a x plus b, a and b are real numbers, then my of s is equal to e power bs m x of as. Okay. This is actually a fairly simple change of variable. Okay. Fine. So, in particular, so as an example, if you have x is your standard Gaussian and if you have y is equal to, well, sigma x plus mu, y is equal to sigma x plus mu. In this case, then y will be, you can easily show that y will have mean mu and standard deviation sigma, be a variance sigma squared, right. So, then y will be n mu sigma squared, and in that case my will be e power mu s times e power sigma squared s squared over 2. Okay. So, you know the mx of s for the standard Gaussian is e power s squared over 2, right. I am just using this result to compute the moment generating function for non-standard Gaussians as well, n mu sigma squared, right. I can compute the moment generating function. Yes.
Second property, expectation of units to Sx. So the expectation of units to Sx converges, then can we interchange the function?
That is what you have to prove, right. I am saying that this is valid, this interchange is valid, but it is not always valid. It is valid in this case. You cannot arbitrarily interchange derivatives and integrals. Okay. No, you need to invoke dominated convergence theorem. This requires this is not this requires maybe 4 steps. It's not one step. Okay, it's you will do it in your homework. It's a guided proof that you will do. Okay. Good. Now, finally, property number 4. If you have z equal to x plus y, x and y are independent, then you can show that mz of s is equal to mx of s times my of s, and this is because expectation of e power sz, so e power sz is equal to expectation of e power s times x plus y, that is equal to expectation of e power sx times e power s y. Now, you know that x and y are independent, therefore, any functions of x and y are independent, and since then therefore, these two are independent, e power sx and e power sy are independent, and independent random variables are uncorrelated, right. So, this will become e power sx times expectation of e power sy. So, here is where you need you are using independence here. Okay. And similarly, if you have n independent random variables, you will just multiply all the moment generating functions in order to get the moment generating function of the sum. So, this is valid for discrete, continuous, any kind of random variable, right. We have not assumed anything in particular. So, this is exactly like in signals and systems, if you instead of convolving functions you multiply Laplace transform when invert back, right. That is exactly what you are doing here. So, if x and y had, let us say they had densities, then you would convolve the densities, but that convolution is an awkward operation. So, it is better to take transforms, multiply and transform back, right. So, if you want to example, if x1 is exponential of mu 1 and x2 is exponential mu 2 and x1 and x2 are independent, and then if z is equal to x1 plus x2, then you have mz of s will be the product of the two moment generating functions, right, which will be mu 1 mu 2 over mu 2 minus s times mu 1 minus s, right. I am just multiplying the two moment generating functions, and this will be valid for s less than the smaller of the two, isn't it, minimum of mu 1 comma mu 2. Okay. So, this is the moment generating function of the sum, correct. Now, how will you find the if you want to find what the distribution of z is, you will have to invert this moment generating function, right. So, now you can use some of your Laplace transform tricks, what you are used to in Laplace transforms, right. Normally, if you have something like this, you write a partial, what is it called, partial, yeah, right. So, you will write it as a over mu 2 minus s plus b over mu 1 minus s, find a and b, and then you know what to do, right. So, that is fairly standard. I think you can proceed from here. If mu 1 were equal to mu 2, you will get mu minus s whole squared, okay, and that will be the transform of your second order Erlang, because you are adding two exponentials, okay. Okay, so good. Then finally, let me just state the final property before finishing. If you had sum of a random number of random variables, let us say z is equal to sum over I equals 1 through capital N xi, where xi's are iid with mgf mx, and n is independent of xi's with pgf gn and mgf mn. Then so this is a situation you have considered before. I am just trying to write it as its moment generating function. Mx of s is given by Gn of mx of s, okay, or equivalently, which is equal to mn of log mx of s, okay. So, Gn is your PGF from the previous class, okay. The proof of this is using the law of iterated expectations, is very similar to the proof we derived in the previous class, okay. This is fine. So, this formula is most useful in an example of this following kind, where you have xi's are iid exponential with parameter mu, let us say, and n is geometric with parameter p. I think we considered this example earlier, did not we, where you had a geometric sum of exponentials, right, and I think what we did there is just brute forced it, wrote out the whole thing and figured out that there is some answer, right. Here you will get a very explicit answer, because here you have mx of s is what, mu over mu minus s, right, where s is less than mu, and you have Gn I know, right. So, Gn of s, Gn of, if you like, Gn of z is what I used, right. What is the PGF of this? From previous class I had Pz over something like that, isn't it, 1 minus Pz, is that right? Correct, and this is valid whenever the argument is less than 1 over 1 minus p. So, if I were to blindly substitute here, so my mz, z is of course my geometric sum of exponentials, mz of s will be equal to p. So, I have to compose, so I have to take Gn of mx of s. So, whenever I have Gn of z, in place of z I have to write this whole thing, right. So, I have to write p mu over mu minus s over 1 minus p mu over mu minus s, right. So, I have to take care of the regions of convergence, of course, right, just do that, and I think you just simplify this, you should get mu p over mu p minus s. Actually, I did not even compute that because I know the answer. The answer has to be an exponential with parameter mu p, right. You remember the taxi example, or what it is, a taxi or alpha particles, either way, either example will do, right. You are waiting for taxis which arrive like with exponential durations, and with probability p they are occupied, maybe probability 1 minus p they are occupied. So, you have to wait for a geometric number of taxis, each of which takes an exponential amount of time to come. So, the total time you wait is exponential with parameter mu p, okay. So, this is very easy, right, this is like 3 steps rather than doing that big summation in the previous case, okay. I will stop here.